right, well, my earbuds for my iPhone aren't working, so I wasn't able to go live, but I figured I'd record my practice session so people could kind of watch it. But I got loose a little bit, just kind of throwing shots, just trying to figure out exactly what I want to do. Trying to, A, work on the things I always work on, which is balance and targeting, and B, then try and work on angles a little bit, trying to get the ball to go through the pins the right way in certain areas. So, you know, the rule of 7 always comes into play. For those of you that don't know that, you probably could look up that video. I've got a video about it that shows the rule of 7. But just making sure my feet are aligned properly, trying to figure out how to get myself to slide in the right spot to be able to throw it at a right target. So, for instance, I'm trying to now, I want to get the ball about 24 or 25, get it to about 8 ish down lane. So in order to get there, I start my feet on 24. Now I got to take in the rule of 7. So now I got to move 7 boards left. That gets me to 31. Now from 24 to 8, that is 16 boards. So I have to move half that distance to the left, or at least I have to slide at that spot. So I'm going to move 8 boards to the left, which gets me, so 31 plus, so 39. And then I have to take into consideration I have a little extra over exaggeration sliding towards my target, so I got about 2 boards there. So I'm going to be at about 41 to slide at about 39. I need the ball to cross around 24 to get to about 8. And what I actually do is I'll look down lane at 8, about the spot I need to get it to, draw it back to 24, and then I draw it back to a closer target in between the dots and the arrows. And then I try to roll it over that spot. So let's see how we do. Now it did exactly what I wanted. It got exactly where I wanted, but it didn't quite get to 8. And the reason for it is because of the amount of friction. So we got to take that into consideration. Now, obviously that means we don't want to get it to 8, because that ball, if we get it to 8, then it's probably not going to finish. It's probably not going to go through the pin. So let's try. I'm going to move my feet 3 left and keep my eyes the same. See if it gets to 8, and it may wash out from there because it's going to use up so much energy. I'm not sure. Now that one gets over there. It might have even got a little pinch to right of 8, but because of the amount of friction in the middle of the lane, that's obviously not the break point we want. So the break point needs to be around 10, 11, or 12 on this type of condition right now, because this is a used league condition. And in order to get the ball to hook from there, I would have to get my hand around it. So this is a good learning opportunity for, you know, making sure we're not playing the lanes wrong. We're not trying to do the wrong thing. So I could 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3. I could now try to throw it in that same area, but change my hand position to get it to the pocket. But will it have room for error, and will it actually get through the pins? See? So now I get my hand around it, which makes it get there. And most people would then try to move back right and try to throw it there. Now you're fighting the friction. Now you're fighting that area, and you just don't want to do that. You don't want to fight your ball reaction. You got to do what the ball is telling you to do. So the ball sucked up to the pocket from that one spot. Let's see if it does it again. So where was I? 41. So 41, need to slide on 39, hit 24. It ain't gonna get to 8, but it's gonna have the angle to get to that spot. It's probably only gonna get to 10 or 11. See if it does it again. See, so now it sucks up to that spot. Doesn't quite get to 8, it gets to probably 10 or 11 down lane, but it goes through the pins properly. Now, the mechanical type people are going to look at that and they're going to say, oh, but I didn't get it to where I wanted to. I have to make the adjustment to get it to where I wanted to. Well, you saw what happened when I did that. Now I'm fighting friction. Don't fight friction. Just look at your ball reaction and just do what your ball is telling you to do. Let's try it again. I missed left. See, missed left a little bit. Now, obviously, I don't have a ton of room there. I got a little room to the right because there's extra friction there, but because they're so burnt up, I don't have much room in. So that would actually tell me, I think I would actually move off that, because the missed left right there should hold that spot. Should still at least, I should flat 10, not 4-9. So I'm gonna go 2 and 1 left. And see if now I have that little bit of missed room left. Ooh, that one missed right. See, so a miss actually flat 10s instead of, you know, big 4 or something. But I would still say this probably isn't the right ball for the condition. I would need something a little cleaner. So let's take out a raw. I got a raw here. The pink pearl version. Let's try to throw it in that same area and see what it does. And I'm actually going to go back to that 41, 20, looking at 24-ish. And see what this one does in that spot. See if it overreacts because it's pearl. I mean, you could see it started up pretty quick. You could see it saw the friction and tried to move off of it. But it found a way to get through the pin still. So I'm going to try that little bit of a move. And go make that 2 and 1 and see if it does a little bit better job. So now I'm standing 43, looking at 25. So you can see the pearl cover gives me just that little bit of extra room. That gives me the miss room in. If I miss in there, it's probably high flush. That was a pretty good shot there. If I miss right, it probably stands up and swish 7s like that. Or swish strikes like that. Maybe swish 7, who knows. So now from there, let's see what happens if I get my hand to rotate around it a little bit more. Will it go through the pins better? Yep, a little bit better. So we go from swish strike to a high flush. You know, the ball's still deflecting, but it's because of how much angle we're using. Again, you could say it's probably not the right ball because of the deflection, but in all honesty, the right ball is the ball that's going to strike. It's not always the ball that looks the best. I'm going to go 2 more left and rotate around it just a little bit more. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So no need to move left there. I shouldn't have done that. Didn't need to move left. But now let's take a look. So we see what a weak symmetrical pearl does. Let's go to a strong symmetrical pearl in the Zen and see the difference. How is this ball going to react differently in that same part of the lane? So we'll go back to that 43 spot. Same hand position as what I started with the raw. See that? So now we take a strong pearl and that thing just picks up much, much more. So now this is going to force me left, but because it's so much stronger, I don't think it's probably not going to get through the pins. So I got to go to that spot where the raw actually just 2 forward or 2-5 or whatever just happened. So now we're in at like 26. So now this ball should get there because it is a stronger pearl. See, big difference. So this is where knowing your equipment and knowing the difference between cover stocks comes into play. Because we just look at it and we say, okay, Pearl cover stock versus Pearl cover stock. Well, you got to know your own equipment. You've got to know which one is stronger than the other. You know, and then when you go to, I think technically this swag ball, that Joker's Wild that I started with, is a Pearl, but it is a duller Pearl. It's in that middle ground Pearl. So now I'm going to go to a Warrant Solid from that same spot, and let's see what it does. Going to a solid. This is an asymmetric solid, right? Yep, asymmetric solid. Same position. That actually rolled pretty good. I got that one a little bit to the right and it rolled off of it really well. Now, the difference between this ball and the other ones is this one's pinned down. This is a 5.5-inch pin down with a big third number. It gets the pin real low below my middle finger. And that puts the mass bias real low below the thumb. It's still in a pretty strong position though. So this is actually, because the third number is so low, this blends the friction really well. This one's not going to see the friction as hard as what those ones are. So a lot of times when you get this deep, you may go to a solid version. You may go to a solid ball with this type of a layout, or you may go to a Pearl ball with this type of a layout to get it to not be so responsive to the friction. Let's try this again. Try this again. I'm gonna get my hand around it a little bit, try to not get it so far right. Yeah, so now I get my hand around it, which makes it responsive. So that's not the right move. This one you want to stay more rolling, let it read the dry slow, and let it roll off of it slow, so it doesn't overreact like that. Our instinct is to say, as we go left, we want to get our hand around it. Well, that's not always the case. You know, that's not always what we're looking for. Sometimes we need to blend the reaction and get it to just roll off of it. So now I'm going to stay in the same spot. Let me go back to more of a rolly hand position. You see it just picks up the dry, rolls off of it, and continues through. That's what we're looking for. You know, so sometimes you need some of these types of layouts to help your bowling ball slow down just in the right spot and not overreact off that. You know, different ball reaction. You know, most people would get this far left and say there's no way I'd ever use a solid. Well, why not? When there's a lot of friction, sometimes we've got to blend that friction. We don't always have to go to a Pearl. I'm gonna go a few more left. Okay, now we get far enough left and that pukes out. So now we get back into that little bit of oil, because that one didn't read immediately like the other one did. We get in that little bit of oil, maybe now that's where you can go to a Pearl. That's where you go to that big Pearl, like the Zen, and you can get it through the pins from there. So try to throw the same shot. So that one stands up a little bit better. I missed in there, but it still stood up and tried to go through the pins. Didn't flat 10 at 4 pins, so that's a good move, or good news. I could probably go one more left with my feet and be good to go. Like that. So that shows you my practice session, what I'm working on, trying to understand my equipment, trying to make sure my balance is good, you know, doing all these things. So when you go practice a little bit, go try playing around with these different pieces. You know, you'll probably surprise yourself when you throw a duller ball in a spot where you wouldn't think it would work. You know, so There's going to be places where you go and you're like, oh, this ball's so much weaker than this ball. But then you try it because you have nothing left to try, and all of a sudden it hooks and carries and does all the things you didn't think it would do. You got to be aware of that and know your equipment well enough to say, okay, this is probably going to react like this, but given the circumstance with the condition, I might be able to see something different. So on a fill ball, you try a bowling ball you wouldn't expect to look good. There's a lot of times I get into a tournament where I will say, okay, I can't get corners out, like in Three Rivers a couple weeks ago. I couldn't get the corners out, and so I went to trying, you know, just whatever bowling ball I thought wouldn't work, because what I thought would work wasn't working. You know, so you kind of have to sometimes go into that to get yourself to, you know, understand a little bit better. I ended up leaving there and drilling this raw for that type of circumstance, and then fixing this warrant for the same type of thing. So that way I have something to go to in those situations, to get the ball to go through the pins a little bit better. So you just need to pay attention to what your ball's doing when you're practicing, and even when you're bowling in tournaments and stuff. This will allow you to understand a little bit more of what you actually need at certain times. So I hope this helps. This was my little bit of a practice session showing you all these things. If you did like that, go ahead and like, subscribe, comment below, do all those things. And until next time, we're getting out of here. We'll see you later.